My name is Veronica. Greta and I are doing this yin class to learn about our anatomy, and we've been doing for the last couple weeks a series we call Spine Time, which has been really fun, and I've learned a lot myself. Um, but this week we are going into the lumbar spine, which I'm very excited about. So the lumbar spine are these really thick vertebrae, and they only get thicker the closer they go to the sacrum. And it just seems like yin is the perfect complement for the lumbar spine because all of these long forward folds, these hip openers are all really good compressions and stretches of the lumbar area. So I'm really excited for a sequence today. But what I wanted to talk about as I've been doing this research for Spine Time is there have been so many articles and things that talk about bad posture and kind of blaming our posture on, or our bad posture per se, on these curves of our spine. They're saying our curves are too exaggerated and that gives us bad posture, and that's what's causing our body to hurt and causing us pain, which I don't agree on personally. I think our spines develop these curves for a reason, and as we know in yoga, nothing is straight. Everything kind of moves within each other, and there's no such thing as like one big straight line that we all have to fit to. So I'm going to share my screen and talk about some curves of the spine. All right. Um, Here we are. All right. So when we are born, we mostly have this thoracic curve, right? Like we look at this first baby on the left, and it's in child's pose, and its spine is in child's pose. So it's just a big curve, one curve we start out with. And then as we exit, the birthing canal into taking our first breath, that is the first emergence of the second curve, which is the curve of the cervical spine of your neck as it tries to make its way through that canal. So that's the first time that curve is established. And as we grow older as babies, we start kind of gaining more strength in our necks, and we're able to lift our heads up to look around. And that's when that curve of the neck is really established, is when we start learning how to carry the weight of our own head. The lumbar spine, on the other hand, is developed when we learn how to walk. So we see here our what we descended from, our primate ancestors. They have a very straight spine, no curves whatsoever, except for maybe a small one in the neck. But particularly in the lumbar spine, it's pretty straight because they don't have to support walking weight. But after we get crawling as a baby and we want to move on to walking, we must acquire a lumbar curve to bring our whole weight over our feet. And it's studies say that after around the age of 10, that's when our lumbar curve assumes its adult shape. So basically, in the years from birth to 10, your spine has all of this time to create its beautiful curves however you may grow. The curves of the spine can be determined by several factors, such as your bone density, which is different with every person, environmental exposures, genetics, and pregnancy is a big one you see, especially for people later in life. The term hyperlordosis is kind of an overdeveloped lumbar curve, the technical term for an overdeveloped lumbar curve. A lot of times with hyperlordosis, you see people locking their knees, kind of their butts sticking out a little more, but that's just based due to the natural curve of the lumbar spine. And this thing, these curves aren't dangerous within themselves, especially the lumbar curve, which I feel like There's a lot of myth around, but in many cases, they can lead to lower back pain, sometimes serious lower back pain, which is where kind of the management side of it comes in. So long story short, the curves of our spine are really awesome. And in yin, we really tap into the natural curve of them, which is cool. So for today, again, at the top here, these are the four, the movements of the spine: flexion, extension, lateral flexion, side to side, and rotation. There's also anatomical position and axial extension. But basically, we're going to be doing the top four movements in today's sequence. For flexion, we have a snail. So that's exciting. Greta and I are really excited about doing some snail today. For extension of our spine, we have bridge and sphinx. Those kind of work as almost like back bends. For lateral flexion, we have our banana asana. So we're opening up our slide body by kind of bringing one shoulder closer to one hip. Rotation, we're doing a twisted root. And of course, for anatomical position, we have our shavasana. So as we go through kind of our sequence today, we'll talk on the lower spine, kind of what we're working, what movements we're currently in, but this should feel really good. And I'll take it to Greta to start us off today.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Veronica. That was cool to learn about the evolution, to relearn those things. Thank you so much for that and putting together those presentations. I love it. So we're going to start, before we enter into our practice, with 3 rounds of Om. And I chant Om to connect us through resonance and sound and vibration. And yes, we're in separate buildings and states even, but we are still sharing time and space together. And I think that resonance does vibrate together and simultaneously. All right, let's do 1 clearing breath and then 3 rounds of Om. Inhale in through the nose. Exhale, HA out of your mouth. Release, let something go. Inhale, prepare this time. Inhale, breathe in. And exhale, release the breath out. And we're actually going to start class today in Sphinx pose. So for Sphinx, coming down to the belly. And setting the arms up like goalposts on the ground. Coming onto the forearms. And once you arrive here, finding the degree that you would like to hold the pose, finding your depth. If you're feeling a lot of pinching in the lower back, the lumbar spine, it might be a good idea to bring some distance in between your arms, bringing the chest down. If you're not feeling anything at all, you may want to prop up your arms on a couple of blocks or a book. And if you want to avoid any, sometimes this kind of bothers my elbows, I like to put a pillow underneath my elbows. So coming to a position that you think that you can sustain for time. There's always an option to really let the head hang. You can rest your head on a block. You can prop up your neck on the top of your fists. And this can change and evolve as the pose changes and evolves with time. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly talk us through yin. And quick is actually the opposite of yin. Yin is slow, and we want to avoid a sense of urgency, especially when it's so encouraged in our culture to be productive and to get it done as fast as you can, we are trying to cultivate the opposite of that with our yin practice. So leaning into the slow, leaning into reflection and deep listening, more regenerative qualities, more nurturing qualities, and really inviting those into the practice and not only allowing them to be there, but kind of like validating and honoring them also. That is of value to practice those things. And for yin, we have 3 tenets or 3 tattvas or 3 truths. There's a lot of different ways to set up these principles. But the first is to find your gentle edge, which we already found with Sphinx pose. And this gentle edge, we want to be able to hold it for time and sustain it for time. And so in yin, we really like to utilize props. So pillows, couch cushions, blocks, bolsters, sweatshirts, folded up anything. Like, really feel free to utilize the things you have around already at home. That's one of the great things about this home practice. And if you have to go run and grab something and then come back, like, you're of course always welcome to do that. So finding the gentle edge and knowing that when you get there, we're going to hold it for time. And it may not be your full range of motion. You may want to pull that edge back so you know you can be in it for a time. The second thing is to be still. And I think there's a lot of beauty in stillness and quiet. And there can be a lot of reflection and contemplation that can come up in a quiet, still practice, especially when you're creating that space. I know yoga was some of the first time that I really cut out quiet in my day and really took the time for it. And yin specifically very much caters in that direction. And sometimes when you cut into the quiet, the brain and the mind can get super loud. So using our breath as a tool when the mind does get super loud, and maybe even scanning our body, calling in on anything that you use to help strengthen your awareness. And there are 2 reasons in which you would move in the yin practice. And the first is if you are experiencing pain. So pain can be experienced as like a burning sensation. Sometimes it's sharp, sometimes it's like a stabbing sensation. And we even want to avoid tingling, because tingling, if repetitive, could cause nerve damage, which of course we also want to avoid. And the second reason in which you would move is if you're invited to go deeper. And sometimes after a few minutes in these holds, you are invited to go deeper. And of course, follow that edge, ditch props if you need to get rid of them, add them when you need to add them. I often give a halfway mark and a final minute. And at those points, those are good check-in points to kind of see, all right, like how is my edge? Can I sustain this? What do I need to add? And of course, if you need to fidget or move, this is not like I'm not trying to be strict in any form, but to challenge yourself if it's itch, if there is an itch and you want to scratch it, maybe give it 5 breaths before you scratch it. But if you need to move, you know that you need to move. And then lastly, we hold for time. I keep track of time on my phone. Again, I give a halfway, a final minute mark, and that's about it. Veronica and I co-teach this class. I'm Greta, if we hadn't already met. And I think I'll leave it at that. When you do come up and out of these poses, move slowly, move with intention, move deliberately. You can even choose your exit strategy before you exit, being like, okay, maybe I'll press into my palms first, just giving yourself the opportunity to really think about it. And also, when in doubt, like, turn towards yourself with kindness and compassion. I know that when my mind gets really loud, often it's more negative and it's dramatic and it's harsh or it's criticizing. So trying to direct your attention with warmth also, if that seems like a reasonable request. And this is a little bit of a longer hold for Sphinx pose. Sometimes in Sphinx pose, we press up into seal. And I think we do have just like a little bit more time to do that. So if you would like to press up into seal, I'll come back down for the last few moments of this posture. We're actually just going to do 30 seconds. You can walk the palms back towards your pelvis. And you may get here and be like, ooh, that is way too much of my lower back. You might want to come back down. And take a moment. This always reminds me of Ariel from Little Mermaid, and there's like the waves crashing up. And then slowly lower the chest back down to the mat. And begin to shift your way into a tabletop. Walking the hands back, stacking shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, finding a sense of neutrality in your spine, taking any free movement that your body is craving. Maybe you need to bang out the feet and shrug the shoulders. And then we'll flow through cat and cow just to get some mobility going in the spine, especially after that extension. So inhale for cow pose, drop the belly, lift the gaze. That's the extension. And exhale, cat pose. Cats are the ultimate spine flexors. And then you can flow your own breath movement, adding any additional movement. And Veronica is going to guide us through the next portion. We're going to kind of alternate back and forth throughout this practice. And we figured out this new Zoom, the new pinning.
All right, so once you've gotten kind of the cat-cows feeling good, come to a neutral tabletop and then slide the feet under and come to a seat.
Also, Meg is here. Hi, Meg.
Oh, hi, Meg. Grab a block or a couple pillows, enough to support you through a supported bridge. I like to use a block, but again, a couple pillows and maybe a blanket might do the same trick. What you're gonna do is come to lying on your back, taking the block and placing it right below that flat part of the sacrum. So it's not gonna be in that kind of soft tissue part towards the end of the spine. It's gonna be that really flat, part of your hip, not quite the tailbone, but right in between. With your legs, you can keep them bent like this, or for more of a stretch of the front body, you can bring them down. I like to keep my block on the lowest setting. If you're really bendy, you can go a little bit higher. We're only going to be in here for 3 minutes, but I do recommend the lower setting just because this pose is a bit, I don't know the word, juicier than you think after a couple minutes of it. And again, this is extension of the spine as well. The Sphinx is also a really deep extension. But this is also kind of, we're resting the cervical spine and the top of our thoracic spine on the mat. So that's being able to relax. And instead we're opening up really the front of the hips to get just a little more stretch going on in there and continuing the compression of the lumbar spine and those sacroiliac joints of the legs. This is our halfway point. Do you notice anything clenching? Like I noticed my butt was just clenching. Make sure you relax it. Moving out of this pose now, so coming to bringing your knees back up, placing the feet on the ground, and then slowly removing the block or blankets from underneath and laying the back flat on the mat. Maybe windshield wiper your legs to release the lower back. Maybe bring it into a butterfly or a happy baby, rolling around the spine. Giving it just a little maybe massage, feeling how it feels today, if it's maybe tender, or if it's maybe tight, or if it feels just really good. If there's cracks and pops, that's all okay. Next, we're gonna move into snails. So snails not something we normally do in yin a lot, I feel like. So I'll walk us through it. We're gonna start by lying down and lifting our hips so we support them with our hands. So we're gonna lift them kind of like this and go over. Now this is a lot on the neck. It's almost like a plow. So if it's immediately not good on the neck, simply come out. One of the modifications I really like for this pose is to, again, lay a bunch of pillows or blocks like you did in bridge underneath the sacrum and just simply hang your legs like this. You're still getting that small rounding of the spine and nice legs up the wall. If you want to come into full over the head, that's all good, but I'll start the timer now. And this is also an inversion, so blood is going to come to your head. Your heart is above your head. Just be mindful of that. Just cutting off any airways or restricting your breathing. Come out of that as well. But there will be a small compression of the front of the neck. Coming up on our halfway point. Another option is you can bring arms overhead. See if that feels good. You can use your hands to support your lower back. And this is our final minute. All right. Coming out of this pose, no easier way than to just kind of bend the knees and slowly roll back in, down onto the back. Removing anything that was underneath, maybe for support. Maybe doing a couple gentle twists from left to right.
Cool. And once you've gotten that free movement out, doing anything the body is craving, we are going to make our way into square pose. And we're using all the yin names that come from Bernie's book. So for square pose, coming to a seat, and we're going to start with the right leg over our left leg. And for this pose, you may have to scooch the glutes back a couple times. We want the right ankle approximately under the right knee, and the right ankle over the left knee and the right knee over the left. You may get here and be like, "Ooh, my knee is up here." That is awesome. A good suggestion is to put a pillow, and actually I love putting a pillow in between my legs anyway. And just getting yourself a moment to set this up and noticing even where the tilt of your pelvis is. You want the tailbone to be kind of flaring behind us. You could even sit on a book if you have a book lying around, or another pillow to help tilt the pelvic bowl down. And then from here, we're going to take this into a fold. So slowly begin to move the chest forward. And you may get to this point and be like, "Ooh, I want some support for my chest." If you would, grab a pillow or something to support the chest and find your edge. Remembering to release any tension in the face, relax your jaw, unfurl the brow. And I'm going to go ahead and set our timer here. And remembering you want to be able to sustain this for time. I can already feel it in my right glute. And this next part of the sequence is going to be very hip centric. And with the hips, I feel like with the hips and the shoulder, there comes a lot of, with the shoulders, I feel like it can be anxiety, and with the hips, it can be expressed as emotions. And seeing as we just were on a full moon yesterday, a full moon in Cancer, and we're still kind of in that same period. I feel like the full moon kind of has like a little bit of a buffer, both the day before, the day after, sometimes even 2 days before and after. And it's the last full moon of 2020. And also with association with our yin practice, which is a very reflective practice, and getting into the hips, which can bring up a lot of information. And if information is bubbling up, or if it does surface, giving yourself the space to see that information. And you don't necessarily even have to identify with what the mind thinks. Maybe taking a few steps back or pulling the lens back a few degrees, and knowing that it doesn't necessarily get to drive the car, be the center of attention at the party. It's just a part of you as much as joy or pleasure is. But acknowledging that when we do the self-reflection, stuff like that can absolutely come up. And it has for me, definitely through my yoga practice. And we're actually at the halfway mark. And we're at the final minute. And gently, vertebrae by vertebrae, begin to lift your torso, pressing the hands into the mat, moving with intention, moving with ease, and remove any props off to the side. And my intention here was actually to go right into half pigeon, but I feel like I need a release moment. And so maybe your release today is sending the legs out, maybe you bounce them. You may want to windshield wiper the legs. Maybe press the pelvis up, coming into that form of tabletop. Anything that's going to feel. Now the word juicy is in my mind, which I don't really like thinking of my body like a burger, but Bernie likes to use a lot of food words. He uses marinate a lot for his yin. So let's find our way into half pigeon. Starting with the right shin forward and bring the left leg behind you. And knowing that if you practice this in a vinyasa class, we often are here for 4 minutes. So giving yourself the permission to pull your edge back if you need to pull it back. Giving yourself permission to add books if you want a little bit of support to neutralize the pelvis, or maybe to grab a pillow and put it under the chest. There's a lot of really excellent ways to work with props in the yin setting. And this is the halfway point. And this is the final minute. And we're coming to the last 12 seconds here, so maybe begin to think about how you'd like to transition out of this pose. And slowly begin to take that action. Lift the chest, walk the hands back towards the torso, tuck under the back toes, and send the right leg up high for a three-legged dog. Ooh, and there may be some cracks and pops. You can take a scorpion dog. Just roll the femur around in the hip socket, kind of relishing in the release. It's one of my favorite parts of the yin, to being in that sensation. And then coming down to the knees again, sinking the hips off towards one side. And then we'll practice square pose on the other side. So bringing the right leg underneath this time, and the left leg on top. Left ankle is approximately on top of your right knee, and left knee is approximately on top of your right ankle. You may get here, and this side may be different. You may be searching for some support under the left leg. You may even want to fold up a pillow, going for like a double fold. You're moving the glutes from underneath you, feeling grounded, finding length in the spine, relaxing your shoulders. And then slowly begin to move the chest towards the ground and finding your edge. And the edge on this side may be different. You may have a greater range of motion. It may be more of a challenge for you to fold forward on this side, acknowledging the difference. There really is no edge or that you have to meet. If you're feeling it, you are doing it. And then releasing tension if it comes up. And this is your halfway point. And this is the final minute mark. And slowly, over the next 10 seconds, begin to make your way out of the pose. I was definitely feeling it at the last minute there. Ooh. And if there is like a vocal noise that comes up, like that is something your body wants to release in that way. You're on mute. Go ahead and make all the weird noises your body is craving and take any stretches that feel nice after an intense fold like that. Maybe bouncing up the legs. Maybe you want to press the pelvis up. And then we'll go ahead and make our way into half pigeon on the left side. The left shin will be forward on this side. And the right leg comes behind. And taking a moment to set it up. You don't have to rush it. You may want to put something under the left glute to help level the pelvis. You, of course, can always take half pigeon on your back in a figure 4 position. And I'll demo that really quick. Left ankle on top of right thigh. You can interweave the fingers at the base of the thigh or on top of the shin if that is a better tactic. It's going to get, it very much has the same intention of what we're doing here. You can also kind of move your way into a deer stag position. And I'm going to go ahead and set our timer on this side. And I did want to share, I was reading a lot of what I've learned about the moon. And when I've learned a lot about the moon through Posers, Practice School of Magic, and also a lot by the person, Sarah Faith Goddessinger. This is her book, The Moon Book. She had the Many Moons book. She's kind of like the moon queen. But seeing as it was a full moon yesterday, and it was a full moon in Cancer, and that the moon is like already associated with water, I actually just kind of wanted to read her passage about water. It's perfect. I don't even want to try and reiterate what she wrote already. And especially since we've been doing so much hip stuff, it might be kind of a welcome distraction. The moon dictates our inner tides. She tugs at all the water we hold, our blood, our sweat, our tears, our amniotic fluid, our spit, our milk. In witchcraft and tarot theory, water traditionally correlates with psychic ability, flow, intuition, emotions, spirituality, nostalgia, and memories. In ancient times, priestesses built moon shrines at the mouths of springs, which reminds me of Emily's Nidra yesterday, on the banks of lakes, in caves that sheltered secret pools to guard the access to healing water. Water is a force powerful in its versatility. It sinks massive ships, caresses seahorses in its cerulean depths, and travels down through the soil to offer sustenance to the roots that weave through the fabric of earth. Many people are not comfortable with fluidity. For them, black and white rules are the only rules, and their way is the only way. Rigidity is mistaken for safety. Water reminds us that we are fluid. We are mirrors of the ocean, the rivers, and the rain. This is the halfway point. When we own and practice fluidity, the experience of the spectrum of our existence turns technicolor. When our water is supported, it is free to flow. Safety, boundaries, and other appropriate chosen vessels allow us to float easily on the rivers of our lives. Acts of care, love, pleasure, and beauty that heal others and ourselves are revered. The mysteries of our world are appreciated as much as the mysteries within. And also, we're working into the lumbar spine, which I feel like is the base Muladhara chakra. It's also Manipura, which is like the belly and like strength of will, but it's also Svadhisthana, which is like kind of right in between there. And that is often associated with passion and fluidity and the water element. So I really felt like talking about water today. It was like the world was asking for it. We've got one final minute here. And slowly begin to make your exit. You may choose to walk the palms back towards your pelvis, lifting the chest. Tuck the back toe under, engage your back leg. Send the left leg up this time. Oscillating the thigh around, making figure eights or infinity signs. Feeling the smooth gliding sensation created by articular cartilage and the synovial fluid. And then we'll meet back down in a seat. And Veronica is going to guide us through the rest.
All right, so we're at our seats and we're actually going to come to lying on our backs as we, kind of bring this practice to a close with our last two movements of the spine. So this one is going to be lateral flexion. We're going to go into banana asana. So we're going to start by moving the feet off to the left and opening up the right side. So I move feet first, kind of walking my feet off to the left, maybe till I feel a stretch here in the IT band and in my hip. And then I slowly start to move my upper body to make a curve like a banana, almost like a C shape, but a very, very small curve. A lot of people like to take the right foot and put it over the left ankle to kind of increase that stretch in the IT band in the side. Or you can grab your hands and kind of pull open on the right hand from the right arm. And that way you can kind of get into this shoulder crevice in the back of the scapula. We'll hold for time here, thinking about the spine in its beautiful lateral flexion, where on the mat it's touching, where on the mat gravity is doing its work, the ribs opening up, the little spaces in between them, getting a nice stretch, fresh blood, fresh water. And this is our halfway point. Coming up to the end of this pose and making our way into our exit. Slowly release the ankles if you've crossed them. Move them back into the center line of the mat. And slowly moving the arms and maybe bringing them to the side. In between bananas, I always love to kind of give my knees a little hug in to my chest. And then release the legs back out and we'll take it on the other side. So this time moving the legs off to the right to open up the left side body. We'll start by moving our feet to as far as they will go to make that beautiful C-shaped curve, and then move the arms. We'll be here for we're holding this for 4 minutes. Yin is, a silent practice as well. It's about the kind of cooler, darker side, the shadier side, the quieter side of things. This is our halfway point. Noticing anywhere you might have clenched or stressed, and letting it go. I'm a bit of an anatomy nerd, and so I can feel my left QL, quadratus lumbar, on my lower back, like getting the stretch it's been wanting all day. So I'm very happy with that. Maybe you're feeling something similar, or feeling a stretch that your body maybe has been kind of craving, and really enjoying that moment. This is our final minute. All right, moving slowly, starting with again the legs, slowly bringing them back to center, and then moving the arms nice and slow. Maybe again, bringing them in for another hug. Maybe bringing them into a happy baby. The final posture for tonight is going to be again a supine twist, and I'm going to offer the twisted root. So keeping your kind of legs up like this, taking the right leg and putting it over the left thigh in a kind of a crisscross. If you're flexible enough, you can do maybe even one more twist. And then just simply dropping that twisted root off to the left. You can totally support the knees as they drop off to the side with a couple pillows or blankets. If you want to put something under your head, that feels good too. If you want to have your arms out long to a T, head can fall on either side. We did a lot of hip opening, a lot of forward bending, especially with those square poses. And well, we did every movement of the spine, so this is our final movement, final release. The last 30 seconds. Start to bring the legs back to center, pulling that twisted root back up and releasing the legs from that bind. Moving just straight on to the next one. So taking the left leg, placing it over the right thigh. If you want to do one more twist and tuck kind of the left toes underneath the right calf. That's awesome. And just dropping off the legs, this time to the right side. Again, if you need to move those pillows over and support the knees on the other side, or you just want to do a simple supine twist, all good. These last 2 minutes. Are just ours for this final twist, this final rinse. So good for the health of our organs, our digestion, and our nervous system. Really telling our body that it doesn't have to go anywhere or do anything for the remainder of this class. Final minute. And slowly picturing just in our heads our exit out of this pose. And begin to take those steps by bringing the legs back to center. Any last posture we need, maybe arms overhead, maybe a nice squeeze. Whatever it is, take it now. And we come into Shavasana, our final pose, our final rest. Come to laying on the back. If you want to bring any props to support your Shavasana, maybe some pillows under the knees, maybe a pillow behind the head, a blanket over you to keep you warm. And I'll hand it over to Greta to take us out of this practice. That was a great passage too, by the way, on water. I really enjoyed that.
And we really have carved out the appropriate amount of time for Shavasana this class period, and really utilizing the last 5 minutes we have together to practice awareness. And with that idea of water and fluidity, I know that we just also practice stillness and quiet and spaciousness, but I think there's a lot of fluidity still to be found in quiet and stillness. And there's always fluidity going on in our body with the blood coursing through, and a lot of actions that we can't see with the naked eye unless we had like a telescope. So finding that fluidity, and maybe it's with a body scan, maybe it's by scanning your spine, but letting that be your focal point. And I'll let you know when it's time to come up and out. And slowly begin making subtle movements with your body. Maybe it's wiggling of the fingers. You might choose to bounce your legs, expand your face, scrunch it together, relax your jaw, remove the tongue from the roof of the mouth. Bring the arms above you like you would stretching in the morning. Hug knees in towards your chest. And roll over onto the left side, which is in association with all these lunar qualities and generative practices and slowness, and also yin. You can also roll to the right. That's more active solar. Maybe you've got like a paper or something to write after this. Using the bicep like a pillow, and generating gratitude for doing this practice in particular, practicing these energetic qualities, but also like learning so much about anatomy from Veronica, and stressing and compressing the connective tissue, creating bone regeneration, like stressing the joints. It's a really beneficial practice for our bodies, especially in the long term. And honoring the lineage of this practice, going back to India with its roots and its lineage of teachers and also wisdom texts that come from there. And then also honoring the ancestors of the land that we occupy in Seattle. It's the unceded ancestral lands of the Duwamish Coast Salish people. And Veronica is teaching out of Brooklyn, 3 hours away in time zone, and honoring the unceded ancestral lands of the Canarsie and the Lapade and the Rockaway people, and honoring all the indigenous land and their tradition of working in collaboration with nature and really protecting that land. A lot of the beautiful places that exist in our world today are protected by them. So thanking them for that. And you can press yourself up to a seat. And we'll meet with hands at heart center. If that feels authentic to you, take your time coming to a seat. And this gesture represents non-dualism. So the coming together of these oppositional forces, yin and yang, lunar and solar, dark and light, and where they meet at the heart. And bringing hands from heart center to third eye, strengthening connection between your heart and your mind, tapping into the power of your intuition, and bowing forward to seal in your practice, honoring the full gamut of your human experience, both light and dark aspects. Peace and thank you. I guess lark is light and dark. Truly, truly non-binary, non-dualism. Okay. Thank you for being here. Next week, I think we're getting back into our runners class. Yeah? Yeah. So if you're a runner, this sequence is very much designed for quads and hip flexors and feels good. I'm going to put the Venmo in the chat box. And otherwise, thank you so much for being here. I really